Hi, today we're going to talk about what you need to do in order to revise your bylaws and standing rules for your PTA and PTO. How to revise your group's standing rules and bylaws is a question that I get asked a whole lot, and so I thought it might be really helpful for me just to tell you how to do it real quick. So the whole process it seems really overwhelming, and in most cases I find that people make it out to be more than it actually is, just because they're intimidated by the whole process. The bylaws and standing rules of your group are actually legal documents, and I think that's kind of where people get freaked out. I had a question emailed into me, and the person wanted to stay anonymous, and she asked, is it necessary for an attorney to be present when we're having discussions about revising the bylaws and standing rules? And my short answer to her was, no, you don't need an attorney. I think and that might come in where people think, well, they're a legal document, so I need to have an attorney there. Well, not really. And an attorney could be helpful. In fact, I usually revise I'm usually on the committee to revise the standing rules and bylaws because I do have a legal background. I'm no longer practicing attorney, but I once was, and I understand the language and understand the reasoning for the language in the bylaws and the standing rules. So it makes it really easy for me to figure out what's going on and how to tweak it appropriately. So short answer to do we need an attorney is no. You just need people who can read and understand it. And before I go into the whole process of how to revise them, let's kind of just take a step back and talk about the whole purpose of bylaws and standing rules. Every PTO needs to have bylaws and standing rules. If your group doesn't have them, then you are really missing out. And it's something that might not even be something that you think is important until it's already too late. So if your group is working well, that is exactly the time to get something set in stone. So bylaws and standing rules are essentially the procedures and the rules that govern your group. So it's really not to prevent people from doing things. I guess that in some cases that can be it, but if you think of it like that, then you're kind of missing the whole point. And that is, the bylaws are there to kind of give a structure to your group, and so people can understand and really have it all literally spelled out for them what the procedures are and the processes and what they should be doing in the group. Like the bylaws discuss the purpose of the group, when you're going to have elections, and the big organizational concepts and ideas and the structure for your group. So without it, you could have a new leader who comes in and is like, I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it something a different way, and it could be totally catastrophic to your group. So I'm not going to go through what normally is in bylaws. You can totally Google that and find that. But the whole process of changing these is something that I can go through really quickly and just boil it down pretty succinctly. So the first thing you need to do is elect a committee to revise them. So the committee should have a chairperson, so you can have somebody, essentially being the captain of the ship and leading the whole process of reviewing them, revising them, and presenting suggested changes. So it doesn't matter how many people are on the committee. Again, I'd say smaller is better. So 5 or less people. Because again, it's for a PTO. It's not for a major corporation or a major nonprofit. So probably 3 is a good number. And so you elect that committee, and they just look over all of the current bylaws and standing rules and look for where your group has evolved. So, for example, in one of my groups that I'm going to be heading up next year as president, we don't have a communications chair in our PTA at this particular PTA. That role falls on the president. And I've never been president at this PTA, but I've been involved for a really long time, and my friends have been president, and I can see how much time they're spending on communication issues. And so I proposed to the group, I'm like, hey, I'll be president, but I'd really like to add a communications chair because I really think that that would benefit the group. And that may not have been an issue a decade ago, but now it's to the point where you have to communicate so much more with parents to get across your point, just because there are so many different things coming at parents and so much information coming at parents that they can the PTA message can get lost in the shuffle sometimes. So I felt it would really benefit the group to have a dedicated communications chair. So next year when we do our revisions, you betcha I'm going to be adding in a communications chair. Similarly, if there are positions that were specified in your bylaws or standing rules that no longer exist, for example, maybe you had specified that there was like a garden club chair and you no longer have a garden at school for whatever reason, and so you don't have a chair of that committee, that should go ahead and be deleted. So those are the kind of changes that you need to be looking for. If you specify your dues, your membership dues amount, and that is changed, make sure it's updated in your document. So after your committee has met and reviewed the bylaws and standing rules, they should be compiling like a list of amended changes. So the committee is to be looking for the changes and also making recommendations about what needs to be changed and how it should be said. So once they're ready to present a report, they do it at a meeting where all of the changes are explained. And it's really helpful if you go ahead and print out copies. And if you want to do it in like Word or Pages where you're like tracking the changes to where if you're deleting something, it's like the text is crossed through or has a line through it. Marked out or whatever it's called. That's really helpful for people to see how things are changing, because if you have a lot of changes, it can be really confusing for someone who hasn't been involved in the process of the revisions to understand what the heck is going on. So you're going to want to go ahead and present those changes at one meeting, and then you're going to want to hold off on voting on the changes until the following meeting. At the following meeting, you'll present the proposed changes one more time, and then you'll go ahead and vote on them, and then that's how they become effective. And then if you're a PTA, you're going to want to go ahead and send your changes to your state office so they can take a look and review them, and they will give you final approval. If you are a PTO, of course, you don't have a state office to be sending something into, so as soon as you vote on the changes, you're good to go. And then the final step, after they've been approved by the state office or voted on, if you're a PTO, is to distribute copies to everybody in the groups so that they know what the new bylaws and standing rules are so they can go ahead and follow them.